What's going on, guys? Nick here. Today we're going to be installing intake manifold on the car and fuel rails, injectors, and fuel pump. This might turn into two separate videos, so I'm just going to do the intro right now for the fuel pump, injectors, and rails, and then the intake manifold might be a separate video. So we're going to get started on doing the fuel pump, injectors, and fuel pump. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is depressurize the fuel system, and the way to do that is you have to pull the fuse for the fuel pump. I'll show you guys which one that is. On your little diagram here, it will tell you that this one right here, the 20A fuel pump, that's this fuse right here. You're going to want to pull that out, and you're going to try to start the car, and it's going to use all the fuel that's like still left in the system, and the car's going to start and shut off. And then after you try to start it the second time, if it doesn't start, you know you did it properly. And then from that point on, we can remove the fuel rails and injectors without getting sprayed with gasoline, so that's always a plus. Alright, so I pulled the fuse and I started the car, and it ran for a good 20 seconds, and then it shut off because it wasn't getting any more fuel from the pump. So it was using all the fuel that was in the line still, and it ran for about 20 seconds, and then you go to start it after that, and it's not getting any fuel, so it won't start. So you know that the fuel system has nothing in it, so that you can pull the injectors and you can pull the rails off and not get sprayed with gas. So step one, complete. Alright guys, just an update on where I'm at. I've removed the whole stock intake. It's all 10mm bolts. One here, and then there's one down here. I also removed the two bolts here and here that are connected to the cover that goes over the top of the fuel rails, so I can get to them. This is the sound tube generator bull crap. Put that over here. That's only two 10mm bolts as well. Most of this is all 10 mils. So all of this is off. I have to remove these covers here for the fuel rails to get to them, and I believe they're 10 mil as well right there. Removing the throttle body right there. Those are all 10 mils. So I mean, it's all basically just 10mm that you need, and it'll take all this stuff off of it. So I'm gonna start taking this other stuff off, and I'll get back to you. Alright guys, this fuel rail cover on this side is removed. It was 2 bolts, and they were 10mm, I believe. They're all like 10s and 12s. The one on this side was a little bit more of a pain in the ass to do. There's a bolt there. There's one down in there where that tiny little silver spot is right there. And then there's one, I have my flashlight here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but there's one hidden under the wires down here. Once I move them out of the way, when I pull the rail cover off, I can show you exactly where it's at, but there is one down there. Alright, so the passenger side fuel rail is off. This is it right here. Has your stock injectors on it. There's 2 bolts, one there and one there, that are 12mm that go right down in there. To get them off though, you do have to remove the injector clips right here. They're pinch clips. I used pliers on them because they were being a bitch and would not come off. So this rail is completely removed now, and I just have to remove this right here, and then that can be swapped out with the new fuel rail from Velox, and then we can start taking off the other side and then do the intake manifold. Alright, as you guys can see from the last video, we did remove the throttle body. It was 4 10mm bolts, not too bad. We did remove the fuel rails from down here, and the injectors. This side was a little bit of a pain in the ass. A lot of the bolts were hidden, but you guys will see it in that video. And we also did on this other side. There's your fuel rail right up there. I didn't get to swap the other one into it yet, but apparently everything should be removed from the intake manifold now, other than the PCV and the brake booster line. And once those are taken off, I should be able to get the intake manifold off with the 6 bolts that are holding it on. There is one right there. There's one right there. Where are you? It's right down in there. And then there's one in the back right there. So there's 3 of them on each side, and hopefully once those lines are removed and we move those 6 bolts, the intake manifold should come right off. Should. I do have all the bolts that are holding the intake manifold on off, so all we have to do now is remove the PCV and brake booster lines, and we can pull the manifold off. So let's get it done, and now we have light, so you guys get a decent quality video. Alright guys, all of the bolts for the manifold are off. There is where the manifold was bolted onto the car. I'm a little out of breath because I was wrestling it. After you take all that off, there's a clip on the one side where right here, that clip has to be undone so that you can remove the lines that are on it. And then there's just this little bolt right there on the back. I believe it's an 8mm. That's got to come off. And once you do that, the intake manifold should come off free. I could not get the brake booster line, this one right here, off of the manifold, so I literally just disconnected it from the brake booster right here and disconnected it that way so that I can pull it off. So I'm going to unbolt this now and get the manifold completely off the car. Alright guys, the intake manifold is off the car, as you guys can tell. I'll show you guys what it looks like a little bit. There's a throttle body just kind of chilling there. There's a couple other things you have to disconnect, including this. This was bolted onto the bottom of it. Let me focus on it. And it wasn't a 8mm, it was a 10, this little thing right here. And I'm pretty sure in the video I said, I'm probably going to end up correcting this as well. In the video I said that they were 10mm bolts holding on the manifold, and I believe they were 12. If I'm wrong on that, I will correct it. But yeah, the manifold's off. It's over yonder, right here. And as you guys can see, I said I just disconnected the brake booster line from the brake booster itself. So it's still on here. I have to end up pulling this off. And I'm going to get the aluminum intake manifold out of the car and show you guys side by side what they look like. Alright guys, here's the stock manifold. Stock plastic one. And this is the 2017 manifold that comes on the 2017 BRZs. That is aluminum. And when you're boosted, it's supposed to do like 15 to 20 wheel horsepower on the top end, but when you're naturally aspirated, it doesn't make that much of a difference. So this is why we're putting it on the car, because we're getting boosted, and hopefully we get a decent amount of power out of it. But we're going to be installing this onto the car right now. Alright guys, now you just have to do everything in reverse of what you did originally with taking the manifold off. There's a little like nozzle thing right here. This line right here hooks up to it. So this goes right on here, like so, and then this piece right here brackets to this right here. Oh no, this back here. That's my mistake. This brackets to the back on here. There's a little hole for it, and then we're gonna wiggle everything back into the car, and the manifold will be done. One thing I almost forgot to mention, guys, the sensor that's attached right here. There's a screw right there. Phillips screw that holds it in. That has to be taken off of this manifold and swapped onto the new one. So I'm going to be doing that now. I got a Phillips screwdriver, and then I'm going to take this and swap it. It's relocated slightly, but it serves the same purpose. So I'm going to be taking this off and plugging it into the new manifold. Alright, I spent the extra money to get the throttle body gasket, so I'm going to be putting that on right now, and then reattaching the throttle body, and then the manifold after you bolt up the other 4 bolts. It's holding my 2 right now. Once you bolt up the other bolts, it's pretty good. With mine, I noticed something that's not like very reassuring to me. This sensor that screws into the top of the manifold, it doesn't seem like this screw that came off the other one fits it very well. It doesn't screw on all the way, and it started to strip, so I pulled it out so that it wouldn't strip the rest of the way. So that's not very reassuring to me, so I might go to like a hardware store and try to find a screw that'll fit that so that it holds this sensor right here on top of the manifold in. But I'm going to put this gasket on and then throw the throttle body back on. Alright guys, I finally got the driver's side rail off. This was one of the biggest pain in the asses ever. I'm going to have to explain this to you. It bolts into this fuel line right here, and there's this little green clip here that connects everything. Oh, my dad's going to get a flashlight here, and I'm going to zoom on it. This fuel line here, the rail connects into, and there's this little green clip. And to get them off, you have to go to like your local hardware store and buy a set of these. They are fuel line and AC line removers, and you have to use the smallest one, which is that one right there. And you basically have to force it down in, because all these lines have like little like nipples on the end of them right there, if you can see it right there. So to get it off, you have to like force it down in there, give it a good twist, and then it'll pull right out, and then you could swap in the new rail. So paid $9 for those, totally worth it. Alright guys, so for comparison here, up top we have the stock fuel rail, and the bore in the center of it is pretty small. That's the stock one. These are the stock injectors. I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but from what I've read online, these are like 200 and some cc injectors. They're not very powerful, so they're like 200 and some. This is the Velox fuel rail, and if you guys look, the center, I'm gonna have to focus that. The center bore is much bigger than the one on the stock one, and it's also painted very nicely. FT86 Speed Factory by Velox, very nice. And surprisingly, these are the 700cc injectors. They're actually way smaller. These are actually way smaller in appearance than the stock injector. If I put them next to each other, your 700cc injectors, this one, stock is this one. It looks way smaller, but it's actually pumps out over triple the amount of fuel that this one will. So that's going to help the car a lot when it is boosted. It's not going to have to lean out or anything like that. Also, they do come with adapter clips. This one's already in for comparison. So you plug it in there, and then this plugs into the one, well, the stock harness or whatever you want to call it, into the car, so that plugs in there. So these are going to get put on in replacement of those, and it's going to bolt right up to the new intake manifold, and yeah, let's do it. Alright guys, these are the 700cc injectors, and when you put them into the rail, they give you a tube of lube to put onto the O-rings on this end and on this end. And this end right here, the big open one, goes in there, and then this end that sprays the fuel goes down into the motor. So this goes down into the motor, and this end goes up into the top. So it sits in like this. Also, they come with new harnesses to plug into the OEM ones. So we're going to get these into the car, and then this is the passenger side, so this is going to go on first. Alright guys, both fuel rails and injectors are on the car. After you do that, there's the braided fuel line right here that runs from one end of that fuel rail on that side to this one, and then on the front of this one, this rubber hose gets connected, and this is your fuel line right here. So follow it all the way down, and there's going to be right there a Phillips screwdriver. Unscrew that, pull this line off, and then you're going to want to run this line with its new bracket or clamp, whatever you want to call that. You run it down through this little clip here where the old line was, hook it up to there, and then your fuel system is done, and we can start on the fuel pump. Make sure when doing the fuel rails, you also take the fuel pressure regulators, these things right here, off of the stock fuel rail and put it onto the aftermarket one, or else you're going to have an issue there. So just make sure you do both of them on each side. Tighten it down. It's a 22mm wrench, and yeah, that's all you got to do. Alright, so last part into doing the injectors and rails, you have to take a razor knife, because that's literally the only way you can do it, to get the stock fuel line off, because you're not going to reuse this. This does not get reused. So this gets thrown out, and then this line that's now hooked to the new fuel rail with this clamp on the end of it right here, that gets run down and attached to the factory fuel line right here. So this goes onto here, tighten it down, and then the injectors, rails, and manifold are complete. Alright guys, and if you watched the last video, you guys know that I had an issue once the car was all done with a ground issue on the computer for the fuel ECM right here. So this is very important that it has to be put into the install. You can either get a Velox fuel rail cover that I actually have in my house right now that I'm going to show you guys really quick, or you can take the stock one and cut it so that it fits. You just have to cut it in the back right here so that you can fit this fuel line out the back of it. If you have the 2017 manifold, you have to cut it here and here so that it fits properly, and I think they said you had to cut it in the front, which we did just in case, as if there was a fitment issue. But it's all bolted on, and the fuel system is grounded. It grounds at the bottom underneath all of this when you guys saw when I was taking it off. But make sure that you do either cut this piece up to put onto the car to run temporarily, or also to get the Velox fuel rail, which I'll film now. So very important, one of the most important parts of the install. Make sure that this ECM is grounded properly. Alright guys, so that's how you install Injectors rails, the 2017 BRZ aluminum intake manifold. This install took me probably around 2 hours to do. The fuel rails had to be removed, so when I was doing the fuel rail install, they were already out, so that made it a lot easier. But it was 6 bolts to get it off, a couple clamps, a couple hoses on the back of it, but not too bad. Probably took around 2 hours to do. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments about this install, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.